So this is just like a perfect spot for Let It Go. It makes it so hard for my opponent to challenge Kuzco afterwards. So let's just chuck that in your inkwell. Get questing away. And again, we can hold on to these as just follow-ups to this board. Opponent has to answer us where we are right now, or lose the game.
When I first began playing the game, I asked my friends, what is the least respected color combination in Lorcana? And I got one universal result. Emerald Sapphire, a color combination that really hadn't found a home or a reason to prioritize it over one of the other options. Today, however, after digging around and looking for a way to make this combination of inks work, I think I may have found one of the better budget decks that Lorcana currently has to offer. Based loosely on a list from 1st to 20 over here on YouTube, you can find a link to their video in the description box below. This list you see on screen now recently took down a top 8 finish at a 1k in Miami, and it goes to show that you can compete in Lorcana on a budget. If you want a full breakdown of this, it's available for you on my most recent article over on TCG Player, and it's well worth checking out. But this full deck list clocks in at about $150 total for everything you'll need to get competing without need for those big old legendaries like Hades. Let's take a look at Emerald Sapphire Aggro, very much an aggressive deck at its core, lovingly referred to as a high five by the minds behind it. The game for you here really shouldn't get past turn 5 if you're doing the things you want to be doing over the course of the game. You're looking to get on the table fast with high lore 2-cost characters such as Emerald's Flynn Rider and Sapphire's Aurora. She can actually serve as a double duty card in this deck as a shift target for bigger Aurora if you need her to. You're then going to look to ride that early lore advantage into a victory by curving out with higher questing 4 and 5 cost cards like Mad Hatter Gracious Host and Maleficent Uninvited. Maleficent is actually a card I want to focus on here as one of the most underrated 5-cost cards in the game, questing for lore just as aggressively as something like Kuzco, Temperamental Emperor, but she's inkable, she has a better stat line to boot, and when combined with these Emerald characters, she's fantastic in the face of anti-aggro tools like Grab Your Sword. The best part about building this deck as one of your first decks in Lorcana is you'll pick up some heavily played Emerald cards in the process. Cheshire Cat, Hans, Scheming Prince, Flynn Rider, and the like, they're all cards seeing play in a menagerie of Emerald decks in the game right now. I've got some games coming up with this one for you today, and I do hope you enjoy. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to the channel here at Beyond the Inkwell. We're loving making Lorcana content, and I'd love to see you around in the future. With all that said, enjoy the games.
Okay. So this hand is like super green ink heavy. Obviously we get to be a little selective with our mulligan here. No harm in keeping the 2 into 3 into 5. If we're looking to go Flynn into Mickey into Hatter, there's a world where we want Let It Go after that. I feel like we're always going to be mulling away the other 3s, and probably the hands here looking for a 1. Keeping the Let It Go might be a little greedy. I think it actually probably is a little greedy. I'm okay with it. It's ink at the very worst. Looking for a 1 here in an ideal world. I'm finding them. Finding the 1s here is kind of great. So, I think we would rather our opponent... do we have any way of keeping things secret for now? We're after going 2 on Flynn into Mickey on 3. And we don't have 2 green cards we're happy to ink. So it changes very little about whether we lead on Duke or whether we lead on Flounder. They're both mostly the same by all intents and purposes. So we'll just start with a nice early aggressive start. This deck is very much wanting to get on the board super early and curve out where possible. So we'll get on the board with the 1 where we can. Opponent inking themselves and passing. We're mostly fine against other hands decks. We have the inkable removal spell and they don't. So this is just going to be inking Philo into Flynn Rider, questing with the Flounder. This is a pretty good start all around. This is very much the kind of like game you're looking to play when it comes to starting. At the moment, we're able to just go 3 into 5, which is perfect. Get underneath. So opponent's on Emerald Steel. That should be a reasonable matchup. Got to be a little wary of this Grab Your Sword, which could definitely come to punish us. But we're not in a position really to be playing around that. Which of these 5s do we think we're inking? It's definitely one of the non-Auroras, because I can potentially keep other stuff safe from smashes and effects like that. And I think I would rather have Hatter over Maleficent in this case. So we're going to ink the Maleficent, hold on to the other 5s, set ourselves up to keep this curve going, and just get questing away with Flynn and Flounder. Try saying that 3 times fast. This is a really good start. This is exactly what this deck wants to be doing on a regular basis. Opponent with a very slow start, been inking away more than establishing a board. And we're very happy to see that, because Emerald Steel is not normally colours that do great at dealing with your stuff outside of Grab Your Sword. And we are a little bit away from that currently, so we should be able to get a little more lore from our Flynn and our Flounder. The smash does go straight at Flynn, which is fine actually. We don't mind that. Eye of the Fate is an interesting one. This deck often wants to stop inking on 5. We could hold on to this, but I think all the 5s are more valuable than Eye of the Fates at this moment in time. So we're going to ink that. And I think this is actually quite close between Hatter and Aurora. I'm leaning towards Aurora, but I don't actually care too much about either of these bodies. So I think we're going to establish Hatter here. And then Aurora can help keep the Hatter safe next turn if required. On board early, doing some good stuff. Forcing your opponent to smash a Flynn is pretty good in my books. Opponent will ink their Beast. We're pretty good into Grab Your Swords here as well, with only the Flounder being susceptible to it at this moment in time. It's a pretty good feeling. Pretty good. Yeah, this is kind of why I'm interested in this deck in general. We kind of talked about it a bit in the intro, but I just think it's very good at curving out and pressuring opponents. Like, you don't have to ink anymore at any point moving forward. 5 is just everything you'll need to do. I don't care about this Tinkerbell, truth be told. I think we're just going to establish the Aurora. We don't really want to shift this because we can't. And we'll just get ourselves going to work here. This Tinkerbell can't take out the Hatter alone. And I would rather hold the Duke as a body as opposed to inking it here. And if our opponent plays anything we care about, we can just let it go and pop it into the inkwell. Inks the Tink. We're not quite at big Tink yet. Everything kind of kept pseudo-safe from Aurora. No smashes, no shenanigans on anyone that isn't Aurora. This was a really good start for this deck. Very much on the table on turn 5. Mother knows best, sure. Aurora's coming back to our hand as it is the only legal target for them to do so. But spending 3 of your ink to delay me 1 more turn, deal. Like, I don't mind. You can pick off the Flounder here as well if you want to. It's done its job at this point. Gained us a small handful of lore. I do like the opponent's deck. I think Emerald Steel is mostly a pretty... There's so many good Emerald decks in general right now. You can kind of pair it with whatever ink you prefer. And Steel's got some great anti-aggro tools. Wow. Double knows best. That's a little more problematic. Opponent doing their best to buy some time. Okay. At this point, I think I would rather ink to get the Duke back on the table. And I think the green 5s are better than Aurora in this spot. So we're going to ink the Aurora my opponent knows about. And we're going to go Westleton Cusco. Let's keep our foot on the gas. Force our opponent to answer us again. This is a little bit softer now to Grab Your Sword. But this Duke was always going to be caught in the crossfire when our opponent didn't pick off the Flounder. We have to be okay with that. Tinkerbell is a little annoying, but fine. can't kill the thing that matters at this moment in time, which is great. So we're actually doing a pretty good job at keeping ourselves steady through our opponent's anti-aggro tools, which is great. That's exactly what you're looking for in spots like this. They're deciding who to point this damage at, which is perfectly understandable. The Mickey is gone. So this is just like a perfect spot for Let It Go. It makes it so hard for my opponent to challenge Kuzco afterwards. So let's just chuck that in your inkwell. Get questing away. And again, we can hold on to these as just follow-ups to this board. Opponent has to answer us where we are right now, or lose the game. So there's no reason to ink any more cards. There you go. Simple as that. Really smooth game there. Opponent interacting with us on multiple occasions, buying themselves a lot of time. Just not good enough. Just not good enough. You'll have to see it. Okay, this hand is super reasonable. Super reasonable. So if we're going 1 into 2 into 3 into 5 into 5, I guess the only card we're considering not having here is Tink. Pretty happy with the rest. Okay, we're always inking one of these Auroras, so we will do that to get the Flounder on the table. Obviously, always a chance here. We find ourselves drawing the big Aurora too. Opponent with Rockstar Stitch being inked, sure. Alright, with the Kuzcos coming off, we're playing the Kuzcos before we're playing the Hatter, I think. We'll get our Aurora on the table. Really hoping to draw Inkables back to back here. This deck is very much full of them. It's only Kuzco and Mickey that cannot be. But if we can't find one, we're going to have to lose this Let It Go, which will be a bit of a shame. Opponent with the LeFou, if you're not familiar here, going to be questing for 2 a lot of the time. Interesting. So we could actually just shift this Aurora, but I think we would rather accelerate into Kuzco. I'm going to hold the Let It Go in case I draw any other Inkable, basically. But we'll get ourselves on the table nice and early in this game, get questing away. If our opponent is another aggressively slanted deck, we definitely have the advantage here, going first, being able to accelerate into a 5, and also have access to a board nice and early. Opponent with the Simba, sure, and the Lilo, okay, so this race just got a lot tighter. We drew Maleficent, which we're definitely inking here. Gonna, again, establish more of a board before we start tempoing our opponent away with Let It Go. Just gonna start questing here as we aren't busting through this Simba particularly easily. Ramp it up to 8. We have another 7 lore on the table and another Kuzco in hand. Very much the kind of draw this deck is looking to have here. Opponent with the hands, they are going to be trying to get on the board and race us as best they can. They are questing 4, 5 here, puts them to 7. And then they'll have access to a whole 8 the following turn. So we're definitely not out of this, but Let It Go, probably going to be able to show you its power again. Opponent choosing to trade down with the Simba instead of questing, sure. I'm very okay with that. Giving me the Lilo here seems kind of poor. I'm not a fan of that personally. So we're going to pick off the Simba, pick off the Lilo, quest with the Kuzco, slam another Kuzco. Is very much the plan here. This way we're still ahead on tempo in this race against our opponent. These Kuzcos should be very hard to deal with. We're less threatened by how much lore they can generate. They can only go to 11 here. We can go to 19. Let It Go should be able to kind of lock this one up for us in a necessary evil moment. These Kuzco should just be allowed to go to work, which is something that Kuzco is not exactly known for. But we'll take it. We'll take it. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Yeah, pretty cozy position. Putting the tank here, usually a pretty good sign from a spot like this. You definitely got them in a bind. them having to figure out what it is they're looking to do to get through this is a good sign for us. The hands trades into a Cuzco. I accept. If you're not questing, you ain't catching me up. And that's fine by me. Another hand's coming down. Sure. So at this point, we are almost certainly just going to be trading the Mickey into this hand. We'll go Eye of the Fates. And we'll go target the Cuzco. And quest the Cuzco up to 15. Do we want to quest this Flounder? It does make the Cuzco alone win the game next turn, so I think we are. If our opponent wants to trade into it with their hands, I am fine with that. So Cuzco with Eye will just win the game by itself next turn. Opponent in a very sticky position. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Very nice.